Hey guys, so in today's video, I'm going to address the argument that, the Quran copies from a fabricated story, therefore the author of the Quran isn't God argument. And this argument was made by many Christians, which is that the Quran copies from the gnostic gospel, and therefore the Quran is false because the gnostic gospel was obviously made by a story maker.
Down at the time of him being alive. Funny, they didn't record him speaking in the cradle, which would have been a marvel for anyone to see.
Well, actually, somebody did. Actually, somebody recorded Jesus speaking from the cradle hundreds of years before Muhammad did in the Quran. It comes from a Gnostic fabricated Gospel of Thomas.
Okay, so again, you can then take this back to all the other modern day hippie versions of saying that the Epic of Gilgamesh or the story of Horus, all these describe the birth of Jesus, and that the Bible is a fabrication of based off.
Well, no, they don't, Riz, they don't. But here's a problem. When you have, here's a problem. When you have a Gnostic proven forgery that has this story of Jesus literally speaking from the cradle, it's the only place that it's found, nowhere else. It's in a fabricated Gnostic gospel written hundreds of years after the disciple Thomas actually lived, but they put his name on it. The infancy gospel of Thomas.
It's false according to the people who standardized the canon, right? The people who standardized the canon could still be completely wrong about John, right? And the idea that everything that Jesus did got recorded in those canonical texts have no basis, right? And so even if Jesus did do a miracle when he was a child and it got passed down and transmitted through history, it could be in a book that is true or is false, right? Because according to Christians, the first years of Jesus' life were not recorded, right? They weren't recorded, right? Maybe, obviously, people would have known of him as a child, right? And so we could just say that that was transmitted and it's in the Quran because God approves of it, right? Okay, there's no proof that Adam and Eve existed. Does that mean that I should just reject the Old Testament? You'd say no, right? So this idea of the Book of Thomas is false, and you mean it in a way that everything within it is false, therefore the Quran is false. You can't prove everything in the Book of Thomas is false, right? You can't prove that, okay? Even if you look at the Gospel of John, Jesus himself, according to John, Jesus did many wonders and signs that weren't even recorded in his book, in the book of John, because it would take forever to describe them. So why don't Christians have this belief that, maybe the miracles that aren't recorded in the book of John, maybe they were transmitted, some of them, and maybe they were passed down orally through certain chains or even without chains, just a certain group of people may have remembered them. Why can't that possibility be there? So Christians, this isn't a good argument, right? The choosing of which books to be canon, the Book of Thomas could have made it, to be honest, right? So yeah, that's my argument, which is that the Christians are basing this argument on the idea that Jesus' other miracles, you cannot know about them at all. You can only know the miracles inside the 4 books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, whereas actually it's possible, according to their own terms, that Jesus did have miracles, and those miracles could have definitely been talked about outside the 4 books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Okay, to say that there was this magical barrier that stopped other people from speaking about the other miracles that John says Jesus did is just very weird and very odd and obviously false.